Welcome everyone to Midwest Tree ID. On this channel, it is my mission to help you learn an abundance of trees that grow right here in the Midwest, and some key features on how to identify them. There's just one thing to clarify before we begin. We're not going to be throwing hatred or ridiculing any of the species that we're going to be talking about. But we do, however, want to encourage thoughtful conversation in the comments about personal experiences and things like that. Please try to remember that everything has value and that we are here to enjoy nature and everything it has to offer. So without anything else, let's jump right in. Hey guys, welcome back to Midwest Tree ID. Today we're taking a look at Celtis occidentalis. This is the common hackberry. Probably, again, another one of those trees that is pretty much everywhere. Very, very common to find, especially in rural communities. Old farmsteads and things like that probably have got a couple of these on site, very large, very old specimens. Definitely among one of our largest and a rather fast growing native species, pretty much native to most of the Midwest, probably most of the country in general. And hackberry is going to be most notably identifiable by these rather lighter green leaves that are simple leaves, and they're kind of ovate, so they kind of come to this sharp point at the tip. And we are at my parents' property, by the way. That's why the leaves are all beat up from all the wind. Hackberry is a great tree to use if you have lots of windy situations. They typically hold up pretty well in storms, although they can be a little bit brittle after many, many years. But this specimen behind me is probably, definitely a little bit over a century years old would be my guess. But the leaves themselves are kind of gritty, almost like some sort of sandpaper a little bit. And they are lightly serrated, if you kind of see underneath all the ripped up parts. They are slightly serrated, and one of the things that is not present on these yet is they are commonly known for nipple gall, which is just a little tiny bump, green bump on the underside of the leaves. Very, 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 very common. It's a little bit unsightly in extreme cases. Actually, here's one. So here's another leaf, and you see this little bump. That's a nipple gall. It can be a little bit unsightly, but for the most part, it's not going to hurt your tree. So now that we've taken a look at the foliage, let's go ahead and take a look at the bark and the habit. So hackberry is very, very known to have these large root tapers like what you're seeing here. And on old specimens like this, they're very, very pronounced with these huge grooves and ridges in there as well. Now the bark on this specimen, because it is so old, it's kind of not really as bumpy, lumpy, and warty. It's a little bit more flaky looking, even though these won't flake off really no matter what you do. But you can kind of get a good sense. It's a really light colored bark, light brown, a little bit of gray in there, and that's going to be pretty consistent in the older growth. But as you get to some of the upper growth, it kind of gets a little bit more smooth and even a little bit warty or bumpy. So that's very, very characteristic of hackberry. Very easy to identify when you're finding it in a forest. So you can get a good sense of how big this tree is. There's the mailbox right there, and my tripod right there. You can get a good sense of how large this tree is. But yes, these trees are going to be very, very large. You can see them reach heights of 80, maybe 90, even 100 feet in some cases. Typically, you do see these arcing branches like what you're seeing here. That's very, very common in hackberry. And even with old specimens like this, you can even see how some of these branches are even kind of pendulous. They're starting to kind of weep down. That can be sometimes fairly characteristic of really old specimens. And the spread on a hackberry can be almost equal to its height. But of course, with this one on the backside, it's right next to the wires. So it has been basically half shaved for probably the majority of its life. But the tree has held up really well. And even out here, this tree has really had very little issue. So like I said, hackberry is definitely a native tree to pretty much all the Midwest. You're going to find it abundantly in almost every overgrowth every alleyway, every forest, everywhere. And if you have hackberry on your property, you're going to find more. It's very prone to self-seeding. Birds eat it. The seeds are a little fleshy. Drupe is what the fruit is called. It's called a drupe, and it looks just like a pea. And birds will eat it and scatter the seed everywhere. And so it's very easy to find more hackberry if you've got one on your property already. They're very prone to self-seeding in the area around them. And again, that's kind of just a quality of native trees in general. And even some non-native ones are very prone to self-seeding, and that should be okay to some extent. But yeah, hackberry doesn't get a ton of recognition in the landscape industry these days because of its lack of ornamental characteristics. It can have very aggressive roots, and it can be very prone to breaking out during some heavy storms. But you see some specimens like the one behind me that has been here for probably slightly more than 100 years and never has a problem. Of course, now that I say that, the next time we get a storm, we'll probably see half of it laying in the yard. I hope not. But anyway, yeah, hackberry is a great rural tree, especially. I would very, very caution extensive use in urban areas just because it can be a little bit messy, and it can be aggressive with the roots, and extremely large, of course, too. So that's going to be hackberry for you. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.